Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel. This is my first time on camera, so forgive me if I struggle a little bit, but welcome everyone. Today, as discussion, I'm going to go through this amazing article from Lars that relates to a tiny Angular application projects in NX workspaces. So please have a look. I'm going to go through the whole article. I'm going to write the code from the start, and I will struggle, of course. So please sit tight, enjoy, leave the comments below, and subscribe to my channel. Have a lovely day, guys. All right, so let's start. So this is the article, amazing article. I had a look. I've done a couple of times myself, and to be honest, to be fair, this is a great approach on building a very small Angular application and all set of libraries that then can obviously construct the final deliverable, the final application. So in this article, Lars is talking about something really quite important. Is a strategy they call the shell library pattern, and this shell library pattern is discussed in other article by Nacho Vasquez. If we can see in this other article, there are more clear ideas and definitions of what a shell library is. So we're not going to focus today on that, but we're going to go through all the steps that this article by Lars is performing to achieve a very clean architecture on an NX workspace with an Angular application. So to crack on, so he starts creating an NX workspace with an Angular application, so we can copy and paste these commands ourselves and we don't need to write them one by one. So I'm going to go to my command line and let's click here to expand, copy that and paste it in here. So we're going to create a workspace folder, and inside that workspace folder we create an application, an Angular application called Tiny App. We're going to hit enter, and it's going to ask me a couple of questions now. Those questions are basically if I want to use the cloud caching from NX, which is a paid option. And also we're going to ask, for example, which is the default linter. Either we're going to TS-lint in our case or ES-lint. Alternatively, so we're going to go for TS-lint, and we're not going to use the caching from NX Cloud. So we create those, we create the folder for the workspace, the Angular application, and once all the folders and files are created and npm packages installed, we can start working with the workspace. Now I'm gonna move forward with the magic of Camtasia. So wait until so that you don't have to wait until all the packages are installed. All right, here we are. Everything is installed. We have the folder workspace, and inside the workspace we're gonna have our our NX workspace that we just created. So I'm gonna open this with code and bring code into the window, and this is what we have as a result of creating the workspace with that command we just saw here. I can run this. I don't think it's necessarily, but I will run it just to follow the article, and basically it's trying to update the latest version. But yeah, everything seems to be up to date. Right, so next thing is we gonna extract an assets workspace library. So when we So when we generate an Angular application, it comes with an empty assets directory. So if we go back to our project, we see in the apps, tiny apps, there's an asset directory here. So what he's saying is these all are for static files, icons, images, and web fonts. So we can reference these assets from DOM elements, attributes, and style sheets by using absolute paths, for example, as I explained here, and for example, in a class, in a CSS class. But what we're gonna do now is create our own workspace library where we're gonna put all the assets. So as is explained here, we're gonna follow again the steps, but before we do that, let's have a look at the workspace. So we have an apps folder and a libs folder. At the moment, we have a tiny app folder and a tiny app end-to-end. This other folder is for end-to-end test in Cypress. So we can run end-to-end tests for our application in Cypress later on. So now we're gonna run and create this command here. And from the command line, I'm gonna paste that command and see it's gonna create a library called assets in a directory shared. Reason being, this is a shared library that can be used for as many applications that we can imagine inside the same workspace. So at the same time, we define what the scope of this library is, which is a shared scope, and what type of library is. It is in this case is assets. And the CSS we're gonna use SAS in our case for this library. So we're gonna hit enter and create this library, and we're gonna look at that into the VS Code how that happened. So as you can see, libraries now have a shared folder, and inside the shared folder we have an assets library. The assets library at the moment has this index ts test-setup and all configuration for chest, plus the configuration, the module for the library, the share assets module. So there are a few steps we're gonna follow now, and to clean actually this library. So as you can see, the command copying in this case, basically we're gonna do is we're gonna delete the folder assets from the application folder, and remove all those JavaScript files from JSON files and everything inside SLC from the lib. So I'm gonna copy that file, that instruction, paste it here, and that will do. So basically what just happened, the application now, if I go SRC, the assets is no longer here, and as you can see, the SRC folder in the assets library is empty. All the other files, configuration files and JSON files and JavaScript files, anything that it was inside this library is gone. So now once we have that, basically we're gonna go inside the readme md. I'm not gonna run that, just basically can go inside the readme md and just leave that as description of what this library is for. So that's basically what we've done in terms of creating this library and removing and cleaning the workspace. And the second step we need to do in this case is going to the Angular JSON file, and we need to remove all architect targets from the share assets library. So if we open the Angular JSON file, we see there are a few projects here, and one is called the shared asset, which is a library. What we're gonna do here is remove all the things that are inside the architect and leave this empty. So let's leave the empty and going back to the article, and it says now we're gonna set up common assets folders and move the favicon inside the library. So what we're gonna do now is gonna create directories for fonts, for icons, and for images. As we're gonna copy that instruction, I'm gonna paste it in my command line, and basically what's gonna happen is these assets now is gonna have a set of 3 folders for fonts, icons, and images. So let's execute this and see what's happening in my workspace. Oh, you can see, there you go. We got fonts, icons, and images. So first step is completed. Now we gonna create a git keep file for that fonts folder. So let's come here. Now what's happening is we can have in our fonts, and so that can be put into source control. Same thing for the icons. We're gonna execute the same command for icons. We're gonna go back and see the icons now have the git keep, and same for images. Now we're gonna go into here, and then you see in images we have the git keep. So the last step is to move the favicon.ico that it lives in our application at the moment. As you can see in SRC, we have a favicon.ico that we will move into the library. So we're gonna move the favicon.ico into library share assets SRC folder. Let's go and paste that command here, and now we can see in our favicon is gone from the application, but we're gonna have it in our SRC folder of the assets library. So far so good. We need to now to configure Angular project, the Angular application project, to use these assets from the workspace library. So we need to go into the Angular JSON file again and navigate to the tiny app build option to change these values as assets. So what's happening is Angular JSON at the moment is pointing to, if we go here, is pointing to apps, tiny apps, SRC, favicon, and tiny app SRC assets. In our case, we're gonna be pointing to our library. So this is gonna go, and now we have the application now reading all the assets from the library, the assets library. So we can at the moment, we're gonna try it, see if it works, and let's give it a try. So I'm gonna close the terminal from here, and I'm gonna nx serve -- open and see what that does. Let's wait 1 second or 2. Actually a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. So we have the favicon. I think this is the refresh because we had a previous favicon, and then we see everything still is the same. We are currently referencing the assets from the library in assets library. All right, so let's carry on with the article. So once here is a bit of a different thing. Lars is creating a production build, and the production build then is run using a local server, which is HTTP server, which is npm package installed globally into your computer. So if you don't have it, you don't need to. But if you want to try it, so basically what it's doing is coming here and executing this nx build command, and with the flag production, it will build the application for production, and then we're gonna serve the application from the folder that is called this folder. So we can see here, this is the folder, and we're gonna call now this command, as I have already installed HTTP server. So I'm going to run that command here, and we will have a look that now we are serving the application from the distribution folder, from this folder here, and we can see the application is just working fine. All right, so those are the changes to create an assets library. We're gonna go now and carry on with bundling an asset. So so we say an NX basically generated an NX logo in the application. So as you can see here, this logo, and we are having this logo from a URL, as you can see here, which is this one from Novel. But we like to have that image as part of our project. So how do we get that image in our project? It's just copying that line. That line is going to go and get the image and put it inside the assets images, and put the file inside as NX logo white SVG. So I'm going to copy that line, and let's have a look. Let's stop the HTTP server. Have a look at the assets images where we're gonna put that that image. I'm gonna paste that command here and hit enter, and it's gonna get that file, and there you go, that's the file. Yeah, so we have the file there. So what we're gonna do now, instead of going through the URL to get the file, to get the image, we're gonna go to the assets. So we can go to the application and to the app component HTML, and instead of having this, which is the URL, full URL, we're gonna go and copy exactly as it looks here. Sorry, bear with me. Copy that and paste it here. So if everything works fine, I'm gonna serve the application and have a look to the image if it's there or not. Let's have a look. Yep, there you go. The image is there. Cool. So let's carry on. Now we're gonna extract styles into a library. So we normally have a styles SCSS into our application folder, but in our case we're gonna create a library to use that file, global CSS file from Angular, from the project into that library. So the steps are creating the library. Let's have a look. We're gonna create a library called styles in the directory shared, and we're gonna scope that as a shared library and its type of styles, and obviously we're using SAS. So let's create that library. I've been using the terminal, but you can either use the terminal or the command line as I was using here. Is exactly the same. I'm gonna paste that command, create the library. And just a note, what we're doing currently in this command is exactly, we can do exactly the same using the NX console. NX console, we can go here and create a library, an Angular library, give all the parameters here that we can, and exactly the same one that we can see here. This is a bit more complete set of parameters, but we can either do it using the NX console or just the command line. So now we created, if we go back to the folders and we go libraries, we're gonna have another library called styles. Yeah. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna remove all the JavaScript, JSON files, configuration files, and everything that is inside the SRC folder, and also the lib. So let's copy that command and going back to the command line here, and I'm going to execute this command. That is basically what happened. Everything is being removed. This styles library now is clean. What's next? We're gonna go to the MD file, the README MD file, and just clean that and leave that as it is now, with the share style as a description for the library. Right, so last step that we need to modify is the angular.json file, and same as we did before, we're going to go to the share styles folder, share style project inside the angular.json file, and clean the architect and put that as an empty object. Let's go angular.json, and so let's find the new library we just created, styles, and let's see architect, right, architect, there you go, architect, and we remove all the rest. Cool, so that's pretty much all we need to do. And finally, we need to set up an entry point for the style sheets. Yeah, for the style sheet, the index.scss. So when we clean the workspace folder structure, we need to have a file entry point for our library, where we're gonna start taking all our style sheets. So at the moment, the styles are living inside the application folder, the tiny app SRC. So what we're going to do is just to move that style CSS and create a new file with the same content called _global SCSS. Let's copy that and see. For clarity, let's have a look at the app and see that the styles is here. Now, as soon as I execute that command, let's clean those tabs. As soon as I execute that command, so let's clean the terminal. As soon as I execute this command, it's going to move that styles that we can see here, and it's going to be moved into a library styles, but with a new name, which is the _global SCSS. Let's see. Right, and there you go. That's the global, the same file, but you can see here it's no longer part of the application. Right, and the one thing that is showing here is that we're gonna have an index.scss file in our library, style library, and that is gonna import the global file. So that will be like index is like the entry point of this library for styling. Right, so let's see if I can execute that command, and if it doesn't work, right, so let's go to the library and check it out. So we have styles, we have index, the index is there, so the index needs to import the global file, so that one here. Yeah, sorry guys, there you go. Now I'm making reference of the global file that we just moved from the application. Right, so that's that. And finally, we need to do a couple of adjustments to the Angular JSON to replace the styles option in the build of the tiny app. So as we can see now, instead of going to the application folder, we're going to need to go to the libs and share styles library to get the index SCSS, which is the entry point for our styles. So let's copy that and go to the angular.json here and go up to the bear with me, we're gonna go up to the build of the tiny app and styles. There you go. We're gonna replace that for the new library and the entry point on the index.scss. Right, let's go back to the article, and now we are, as it says, we are using CAM and writing component tests that rely on global styles. We have to add similar options to the test architect target. In our case, I'm using Jest, but I believe it's exactly the same case. Let's have a look, because this is something I haven't done before, but let's have a look. So let's see. I think we're using Jest. So in here, we need to tell that no, I don't think we need to do that, because it's not related to. Let's have a look. So if we are using comma and writing component tests that rely on global styles, then we need to add that option to the test architect target for our UI workspace. But that's looks like it's another library that we'll create later. So if a UI library is shared between multiple apps and have tests that rely on the individual global stats, we would have to create multiple test configurations for that project, as we can see in listing 12C. Right, so we're gonna try it now locally if everything still works as before, and it's simple as, we're gonna an Excel open, and that's gonna open the browser, and everything works. Then we're gonna see the web page as it was before. There you go. Everything seems to be fine and up and running. Right. Next step is create an environments library. So at the moment, the libraries, the application has all the environment related files. But the idea here is that we can gonna move all those into a new workspace library. So I think everybody knows, if you don't, the environment is where we configure the different environments where the application is going to be running. So they can have, for example, APIs for development, and APIs for production, APIs from UAT, APIs for tests. So we can do all these different environment files and specify the values for the APIs and configuration options. So in our case, we're gonna run this command that we're gonna create a library for environments, a library called environments, and again, it's in the directory shared as the other two libraries we created before, and this is gonna scope shared, and the type is environment, styles is SCSS. Right, same thing here. We can stop and paste the command. Let's see now if that executes correctly. We should have another folder in the share library, in the share folder for the environment. Let's give it a go and wait until the command is done. And there you go. We have now a new library called environments, and we're gonna perform some actions on that library just to get it finished. Now let's gonna get remove these files, all the files that are inside the lib folder. And so let's see what happens when I execute this command. So what's going to happen is, let's see. Right, so the module has been deleted. Right, going back to the article, yeah, we're going to move the environment files now and configure the application dependencies. So as you can see, all the files for the environments lives in the application inside the environments folder. So we're going to move all those files into the new library, as you can see here. So we're going to copy that command, come here, and obviously I can do it from both sides, either from the command line or the terminal. So I just do it here. So now environments when the application is empty, and now the lib has the two environment files. Right, cool. What happens next? We need to in the library export environment in. So every single library has an index.ts file. The index.ts file is basically having exposing is like an API that exposes all the things that we want other people to consume from the API. So in that case, so I consume from the library. So in that case, we want to go into our index.ts in the library, and we're gonna copy that line. If we go back to the library index.ts, and we're gonna put that. That's the file that we're gonna. So that's actually the change that we need to make, so that environments files are available for others to consume. Right, and then we're gonna remove the the environment files, the environment folder from the application. So we're gonna execute that command here, and then the environment folder is no longer there. Right, yeah, it's a bit long, so guys, if you feel that it's too long, you can pause the video and come back later. I will continue to complete the article, and what's next is we need to do some changes in the Angular JSON file, so that when we build a production deliverable, a production we will build production for this project, it will use the correct files. Okay, so the replacement needs to be done. So I'm gonna copy these lines here, these two lines, because those are the ones that references the environment files in the library that we just created. And in the file, the angular.json, as we see in the tiny app, there's going to be a build, this configuration production. For production is going, instead of going to the application tiny app SRC environments, we cannot replace those two for the ones that actually have the files which are inside the new environment library which has created. And that is pretty much, so what's happening at the moment, we need to make changes to the references of those files, because initially they were in the main.ts file of the application. In here, those are no longer the case. So now that file are coming from the library, and since this is a library, we use a specific syntax, which is the namespace, which is workspace, and I think it's called environment, but we're gonna have a look. There you go, this is the one. We're gonna copy and paste it. So that's the name of the workspace. If we want to check your names of your workspaces, you can either go here and then you can see the names, or you can go into the tsconfig, and there you got the full workspace name. Then you can copy that workspace name and include that into your import statement. So in here we are using actually the share environments, which is this one here. Right, next. So we're gonna try it locally, and not gonna build it, or we could build it and see if it works. But yeah, let's run it locally. nxserve --open and see what happens. Right, everything seems to be working as fine, and so yeah, that's great news. Great news. All right, guys. Let's we try it now, and we're not gonna add that configuration, compile time configuration to the library. We're gonna leave that for next time. And now we're gonna configure NGRX store. So the first things we need to do to configure NGRX is add the NGRX store to our project. I'm gonna stop here, and we run the add NGRX store minimal and false. So that will add the NGRX and install all the npm packages that needs to be used by NGRX. So I'm gonna stop right now and come back when this is finished. Right, we got the packages installed. And if we have a quick look at the package.json, we see that there should be a couple new. There you go. That's the one we just installed. And we're gonna add now the dev tools as a second step. Okay, let's have a look. What's the change? There you go. We have all the two packages installed. Right, let's wait. This is finished. All the packages are going to be installed. It's going to be quick, done, cool. Let's go back to the article. Now we will move the NGRX store configuration from the app module to a core module, which is another module inside the application. How we do that? So we create a file called core module.ts that lives next to the application module in the application tiny app. So in here we have this app module. Next to that module, we're going to create this core module.ts, and we're going to copy all this content to that file. So this file is the one that contains the configuration for the for NGRX. But how do we do that? Is basically we need to import instead of, okay, this is another one that we need to modify. As you remember, if you remember, we had a look that we have these now environments coming from this file here, from this workspace, sorry. And I'm gonna copy that and come back to the app module.ts, and we're gonna, I don't think we're gonna need it because all this environment configuration is gonna go into another file, but just for clarity and not to leave this in red as quickly, so we're gonna do that. So instead of having store modules and all this configuration here, we're gonna just import the core module. Yeah, and let's import that core module. I think I call it core module. Yeah, core module, exactly like that. I'm gonna import the core module from, there you go. Now we have that into the app module, but we have isolated all the configuration for NGRX into the core module.ts file. Right, now we're gonna next is to create a new library called share data, called data access, and that will have all the root injector for NGRX specific configuration, and we're gonna have this library as the shared data access library for the whole, that's going to be shared across many all the applications that they need it. So let's copy that command, come to the command line here this time and run it. Cool. So if we go back now into the app, we see the data access library now is part of the share folder and our libs. Cool. Next. So once we done all that, we're gonna go to the share data access module.ts. We're gonna change that. We're gonna follow these instructions here. So basically, is configure the NGRX in the module of the new created library. But before, we need to move a folder that when we installed, when we add NGRX to our project, it created a reducers folder into the app. Let's have a look quickly in the apps, tiny apps, SRC apps, it created a reducers folder. So we're gonna move that reducers folder into the data access library. So we're gonna copy that command, come here to the command line and paste that, and see that now this folder is gone from the app, but is gonna be into the data access lib folder. There you go, that's the file, and it's been copied over there. Right, going back to the instructions. So we execute these commands as we just saw, and the next is we're going to navigate to the module as we said before and put all this content inside the shared data access module.ts that lives here. Let's remove that and paste the commands as explained in the article. And right, so we follow the for root pattern to indicate that the dependencies that are provided when importing this Angular module are for the root injector, and this is done by creating static method that returns a module with providers of T object. So we can see in here that's the module, that's the static method for root. And now finally we need to go to the core module.ts and modify the core module.ts to use this new shared data access module for root static method. So we're going to copy that and go into the app core module, select all and paste the right. Sometimes happens that the TypeScript TypeScript server doesn't really it's fast enough to recognize the library, so we restart the TypeScript server and we will recognize the library. This is a kind of a trick, and so right, let's see now that we have the configured data shared data access library, that we can have a look at the basically the application will the dependencies using NX. We can see the dependency graph of all the applications and libraries, how they relate to each other, how they connect to each other. And here we have two implicit. In order to create an implicit library, there's a configuration that we need to add later on. But is saying here, and we need to add a development mode only meta reducer. So now that we can use the environment object to configure injectors and the generate NGRX store configuration code, that's this in another place, namely in the reducers file as journalist 22. So in the index.ts of our reducer, we're gonna go and change that. So we're gonna come here, we're gonna remove this, and that's gonna the state is gonna look like, and we're gonna use a recite form from the NGRX documentation to add a development only debug meta reducer. So in the reducer is gonna create a debug.ts file here, debug.ts file, and inside this content. Right, so this debug meta reducer logs the NGRX store state and the dispatch action every time the actions are about to be reduced. So in here, all right, so we need to configure it, again the index.ts inside the reducer so that it reflects the changes, and it uses this meta reducer. Let's go, yeah, right, we are here. Finally, so links 24 shows that how to add the debug meta reducer, as I said before, in development mode only. Right, so now the shared data access model should look like this one. So they're gonna go shared data access module, and let's go here, shared data access module. Let's copy that. So let's accept root injector data access configuration module. All right, so this is the shared data access module. Let's update that to follow the article. Right, and then the exported meta reduces array is used to configure the root store as seen on listing 25. So this is basically it's exactly as we have in our folder structure. Right, okay. Now we need to give configure the NX workspace dependencies. As we saw before, at the top there are implicit dependencies. At the moment, those dependencies, they're not going to look like that. So if I run NX dep graph, let's see if it's the correct one. Right, so you have the tiny app, and we have the tiny app, and we have the share assets. And as you can see, the styles, the share styles and the share assets are not implicit dependencies. So in order to make those as implicit dependencies, we need to configure nx.json. So let's go to the article, and how do we do that? Right, we're gonna go to the nx.json in the tiny app application. Tiny app here, right? So we're gonna create these implicit dependencies option. And so now if we run the command again for the graph, and we're gonna go here, we start seeing that share styles and share assets are implicit dependencies. Cool. Right, that's pretty good. Right, I'm not gonna go through these. There are options that we can run in NX workspace to detect what changes we have made and run the graph for the affected apps on library. So this command basically will detect at the moment I haven't committed anything, so everything is affecting everything. If I have made a commit previous to those changes that I have done now, we will see only in red the ones that have been affected by my change. But in this case, since I haven't done any commits, it's not gonna show the same as the graph the article is showing to us. And this is pretty much all, guys. So go through the article and it's have a look, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a lovely day.